Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary. You are listening and watching the You Should Know podcast. We're lucky to have Josh Linkner on today, and the topic that we're going to be going through is the music of business. And as you can see, for those of you who are watching the video, Josh has a couple of guitars I'm jealous of in his background. Josh, why don't you do us a favor, the audience a favor, and introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Well, first of all, great to be with you today, and thanks everyone for listening. I'm a weird guy. I started my career as a jazz guitarist. I put myself through college playing music, performed all over the world, still play today pretty regularly. But at age 20, I started a tech company. And over the next 30 years, I was the CEO and founder of five companies, built, scaled, and ultimately sold each of them. I started a venture capital fund in about 15 years ago. And I currently invest in early stage tech companies. So very passionate about sort of creative disruption and technology. And then the other thread is I've written four books on the topic of innovation and creativity. Topic that's near and dear to my heart, both as a musician and, of course, as an entrepreneur. And I've really done a lot of research and studied, human creativity and innovative leadership. And so I have the great honor to speak all over the world, generally on that topic. So weird mix of things. Jazz musician, venture capital investor, entrepreneur, author, and delighted to be a guest with you today.
There's a lot
Ryan,
there.
so many questions. So many
There's a
questions. Oh
lot
my
there,
God. You go
Josh.
and
So,
you start
well,
first. Go.
before we get into the topic, which is really
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
to be, sometimes we get some really duds. So we're kind of like,
Yeah,
what do
yeah,
we want
yeah,
to talk
yeah.
about? I have
This is
zero
good.
musical abilities at all, so I'm not going to be playing any of those. But of the three guitars behind you, which is the most sentimental to you?
Oh,
Oh, that's
he's gonna
cool.
he's gonna make you pick your favorite
Yeah.
child. Good.
Which one would you save in a
The,
fire? That's what I always ask. And then I get yelled at. I'm like, which one of your kids would you save in a fire? Like, I think about this. I know, William, you go dark, but I actually thought about this. Like,
I
all right,
do.
well, the older one probably can do her own thing and she's by a window. The other one, I'm
Nah,
like, how do you make a choice?
I'm not.
Well,
I'm
luckily,
not
this is an
saving any
easier
of them.
choice.
Yeah. What do you
This
got?
is an easier choice here. So the brown one behind me is a Paul Reed Smith guitar, and
Yeah.
it's a real nice guitar. I've had the chance to play that on multiple gigs. I'm in my physical office today. My guitar collection is actually at my house. And so if I was going to say one guitar, it wouldn't be any of these three. It'd be one of them at my house, which is it's a giant jazz guitar. It's an 18-inch body. It's called a Gibson Super 400, and it's like super heavy. And the strings I put on are so thick they're like telephone wires. And it's hard to play. It's physically demanding, but man, it's got this beautiful rich tone. And so that's the one I'd save.
Did you ever, when you were playing bass, or as you play bass, did you play the stand-up bass at any time?
I play guitar, not bass. Although
Yeah. Yeah.
I have played
Oh,
stand up
you
bass,
played.
but it's not my main thing.
No,
I play
no.
piano and I sing, but the bass I could probably get through a gig on an electric bass if I had to, but it wouldn't
I'm
be good.
starting to feel
Yeah,
less and
no.
less talented.
I don't have the arms. The bass players, they have the arms and the fingers for it. It's a different bit altogether. I did play guitar there in like middle school, high school. It's a thing. It's actually really, really fun. Now with the YouTube and everything, it's completely different. Before you had to like listen to something. If you were playing Led Zeppelin, you had to listen to it, play whatever chords you thought, and then like listen to it again and play whatever chord. Like you were just non-stop playing, stopping, playing, stopping, playing, stopping, etc. So where'd you go to school, by the way, Josh?
I went to the Berklee College of Music
Yeah, in
in
Boston.
Boston,
Yeah,
and then I actually ended up graduating from the University of Florida. Sort of long story there, but I'm proud alumni of Berkeley.
yeah, that's a great school. John Mayer, went
John
there.
Mayer, Melissa Eldridge, Quincy Jones, many
Yeah.
legends came from that amazing
Oh,
You know
place.
that's
who didn't go
fantastic.
there?
So yeah,
This guy.
yeah. Anyone I know. Yeah, yeah. Other than Josh. So Josh, you've got this crossroad of innovation and creativity. When did it first kind of dawn on you? When you first kind of like the itch started to you wanted to scratch it.
Well, these are things that kind of came naturally to me, and the truth is they come naturally to everybody if they allow it. The research I've been researching human creativity now for a couple of decades is crystal clear that all of us, I mean, all of us, we are hardwired to be creative. That's our natural state.
Right.
And so when yours manifests in the beautiful art behind you that you created. I couldn't draw a stick figure if I tried. And so like we all can find our muse, but we all can be creative. And if it's not in a traditional sense, art, music, dance, it can be in the way that you run your business, the way interact with your team. And so there's room for creativity in nearly every aspect of life. There's nothing more core to us as human beings than the act and expression of creativity. The problem is there's a lot of blockers, and we can talk about that. But what happened is what called me to it. I recognize that almost all human progress is a direct result of creativity, whether it's a life-saving drug therapy or structural elements of society or the printing press, whatever. And we have a lot of challenges in this world, as we all know. And the solve is inside of us. It's not out there. It's here. And the way I look at it is there's 8 billion people on the planet that have varying levels of dormant creative capacity. All of us, me too, by the way. So I just thought, like, if I could help people unlock that, if I could help them tap into this rich reservoir of this incredible superpower, this energy to create, the world would be a better place. And so I feel like this has been more of a calling. It's like I'm on a mission to help people unlock their dormant creative capacity, which helps every aspect of society: business, health, public safety, families,
I
etc.
want to ask you a broad question because I have problems unlocking my creativity sometimes.
I was uh, I was going to say the blocker. Look, the
What?
blockers are absolutely
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk. So let's one. How do we go about starting to unlock that creativity? And then what? Two, as we get into this, what are those blockers and how do we avoid them?
Yeah, so let's start with the fundamental truth is that we are all built to be creative. I've had people say, "Oh, I'm just not a creative person," and then I start asking them about, like, "Hey, when did you ever solve a problem in a non-traditional way? How did you achieve this level of success in your business?" And they're like, "Oh, I guess I am." And so part of it is like an identity. We think we're not creative because we don't, paint on canvas or do interpretive dance or something like that. So there's an identity level that we can quickly get through. The biggest blocker of creative output is not natural talent, it's fear. So fear is that poisonous force that instead of sharing our cool ideas, we hold them back because we're so afraid of making a mistake or looking bad or having some negative outcome. And so we sort of tap down our creative abilities over time. Like, you've never met a 6-year-old that isn't creative. 100% are creative. And then what happens is, I've heard it said that kids enter kindergarten with a full set of colorful crayons and graduate with a single blue ballpoint pen. And so our systems and processes, even well-intentioned teachers, bosses, they tend to beat it out of us instead of help us develop it. But the
Right.
good news is it's a natural skill, just like breathing, that you can reconnect to and start to gain skill. So the quick answer to your question is that we got to remove the fear. So we got to create a psychological safe environment where all ideas are cherished and instead of judged and shot down. You got to accept an identity that we all can be creative people in our own ways, again, in our own ways. And then the third one is starting to use some tactics and skill. Like if you said, I want to get in shape and you want to go to the gym, well, like a trainer would say, okay, here's a bicep curl is, here's what a bench press is. So similarly, there are techniques and very simple tools to help us build creative muscle mass. And that's been the subject of 4 of my 4 books.
Do you have any kind of working theory about the relationship between creativity and critique? Like when I was coming up, um, I got a degree in art history, but I did a lot of art studio. And back then, you had to, whatever, if you're doing charcoal or printmaking, whatever, you had to pin it against the wall. And there's 30 other students that are going to tell you what's wrong or what's right, generally speaking. Like, you had to be able to accept criticism and then give criticism. But we don't teach any of that stuff in like high schools or schools in general. Some parents do. So I'm wondering, like, your theory on, like, okay, how do we critique or criticism is a part of, is it? I shouldn't lead the witness here. What's your working theory on the relationship, if there is one?
Yeah, I think it's crucial because when you're learning any skill, that skill, that type of feedback allows you to make adjustments. And so the important part though is not critiquing the artist, it's critiquing the work. And so, by the way, when I say artist, I think we can all be artists. I think everyone's job title should say artist. You're an accounting artist. You're a cybersecurity artist. You're a finance artist. And all that means is that you're willing to confront traditional approaches. You're willing to explore something new. You're willing to inject creativity instead of just checking a box. And so if we all can be artists, which I really believe we can and should be, you don't say, "Hey, well, you're a terrible person. How come you did this? What were you thinking? Oh, I'm so disappointed in you." That's a personal attack. And of course, that is horribly destructive. On the
Shut
other hand, if
people
I
down.
said,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not helpful. That just closes people up. So constructive critique is crucial. If I say, "Hey, the brushstroke that you use on this particular thing, here's another way to consider it. Here's an invitation to try something new," that's helpful instead of hurtful. But helpful critique, I think, is crucial to the creative and artistic process.
Josh, one of the you made a comment a few minutes ago around the fear of failure. Do you think the fear of success, the reverse of that, the fear of success holds people back in this process?
Mm.
I think so because then like it's coupled often with imposter syndrome. Like if I'm successful, then I got to uphold that success. And what if I can't? And what if I just got lucky and the next time I can't? And now the limelight's on me and all that stuff. So I think fear of almost every kind is an inhibitor of creative output. Um, the other thing too is like you're talking about we don't learn that in school. William, you would also don't learn in school making mistakes. Like I
Yeah,
think there should be a mandatory class in middle school for all middle school people called making mistakes. And
yeah.
what's a good mistake? What's a bad mistake? How do you learn from a mistake? How do you recover from a mistake? What's a responsible risk versus a silly risk? And. And like when you think about useful skills, we all learn long division by hand. I've never used that once. I've raised almost $1 billion of capital. I've never used that once, but I could have used a class on making mistakes. And back to the creative process, we have this weird myth that creative success is like you're sitting around, a lightning bolt of inspiration hits you from up the heavens, and your work product is perfect upon launch. That's happened in the history of the universe? Never. Never. What generally happens is you have some idea and it's like, okay, but it's kind of flawed. And real creative works come to life through lots of constant revision, mistakes, tweaks, critique, etc. So it's an ongoing process. It's not like a perfection upon launch. And so what happens is when we have an idea and it isn't perfect and ready and subject to scrutiny, we then just say, oh, I'm not creative or I'm not very good at it. And so accepting that it's a process, I think, is also really crucial. There's a great line. The one thing that all wonderful authors have in common: lousy first drafts. Love that. But it's indicative of actually what the
Yeah.
creative process is. It's not just perfection upon launch.
Yeah, you got something in your
Hmm.
head, and whatever you're going to get it out to, like if it's music, you're trying to get it out as sound, or if it's painting or sculpture or whatever. There's this thing in your head. It never, it never comes out the way you first think of it. And I've got series of paintings in my head that I've never realized because of the idea of what it's going to come out and look like the first time. I'm still playing with it, trying to get it right in my head. And most artists, most successful artists, they just go. They just throw it out there. Like a lot of the writers, you read about their process. They get up, they read the paper, they drink coffee, they write for 6 hours. And if they can't write, they just sit there in front of the typewriter or whatever the computer or whatever the bit is, and then once the 6 hours is done, they go back to life.
We
Everyone's
just got
got
to not, yeah, we just got to give ourselves some grace. Like we can't be such a crazy taskmaster and a perfectionist because that will inhibit creativity just like fear.
How do
right.
we solicit feedback or a critique in the right way? How do we not take it, but how do we
That's a
solicit
good
that?
question. Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a good question. I mean, there's probably many ways. So, but one that comes to mind is asking for specific things instead of general things. Hey, you just listened to my keynote. What'd you think? That's pretty broad and it's hard to answer. Or hey, do you have any
Right.
feedback on this thing I just wrote? As opposed to saying something like, hey, what was the thing that struck you the most? That was the most impactful and the least impactful from this thing I just asked you to review. Or, if you were going to make one small adjustment to make this more funny, what would that be? And so I think the more specific feedback you ask for, the better. Let's say it's a physical piece of art. I'm trying to create the following three primary emotions. I want this to be evocative in this way. Is there anything that you see that could make it more evocative in a specific way? That type of stuff will generate better feedback than more generic.
Do you have a way of doing brainstorming sessions, or what's your current mentality, especially as a business leader, on brainstorming sessions? You can go as dark as you want to, or as light as you want to, but just what's your bid on brainstorming?
Yeah, man, I've been studying this for a long time and put a lot of energy into it. So first of all, let's anchor in this. Brainstorming is the technique that most people use to generate ideas, and it sucks and it's broken. It was invented in 1958. It's wildly out of date and wildly flawed. Here's why. Back to the point of fear. In a brainstorm session, you share an idea. Everyone else in the room becomes the idea police and tells you all the reasons it won't work and it won't fit in the
Right.
PowerPoint deck and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
so we're like shamed by coming up with an idea that, as we just talked about, is like it's not going to be perfect anyway. So it's a flawed thing, and basically what it does is it produces mediocrity because we share our safe ideas and hold our more wild ideas back. terrible exercise. So I got a lot of them. I've developed a whole toolkit on it, but I'll give you a couple fast ones. One of them that's fun is called the bad idea brainstorm. So you two parts. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Instead of trying to come up with good ideas, come up with all the bad ones.
Hmm.
What's the most
Domo.
horrible idea? What's
Yeah,
unethical and illegal and immoral? Like really bad ideas.
100%.
You're not going to
Inappropriate.
do them,
Domo out.
obviously.
Yeah.
Right. And after the 10 minutes, look at the bad ideas and simply ask, is there like a legit flip? Could you take the essence of an idea and flip it into something that isn't bad? So you're working backwards. Another one of my favorite techniques is called the borrowed idea. And so the borrowed idea is basically you're asking yourself, where else? Where else in the world is something similar happening that I could borrow and apply it here? So an example of this is there's in healthcare, burns, serious burns are horrible. They're very painful. They're disfiguring. They take years to heal. They apply cadaver skin. The whole process is awful. So researchers were trying to solve this in a better way. And it hasn't been changed for decades. They were studying the way that graffiti artists would tag buildings with spray in a very like controlled manner. So they borrowing from graffiti artists, they created something called the skin gun, which uses a saline solution and stem cells, and they're able to spray it on a patient, and it creates this regenerative skin that cures serious burns in a matter of days instead of years. And not painful. I mean, better in every regard. And so if they only studied the medical literature, they wouldn't have found that idea. It was going outside of their field, borrowing an idea from one part of life and applying it to the other. And the last one I'll just say real quick is I call this is really fun, and I hope you guys try it. It's called role storming, ROLE. Role storming is brainstorming in character. You are pretending you are somebody else.
Oh, I want to
So
do
Ryan, for example,
this.
yeah,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Let's say you were in a normal brainstorm, and your brainstorming is Ryan. You might hold your crazy ideas back because
Right.
natural, fear, whatever. Let's say instead, Ryan, you're role storming as Steve
Oh,
Jobs.
I want to do William.
No one's gonna. You
I
want to
want
be
to be
William?
William.
Amazing. Well, whoever the hero that you choose is, no one's going to laugh at you for coming up with a big idea if you're being Steve Jobs or William, And so what you're liberated. You can share any idea you want with no repercussion. So you could be a famous inventor, a sports hero, a supermodel, a 6-year-old kid, an alien from the future, whatever. But you stay in character and you pretend that you are someone else solving the real world problem. And it's funny. I did this one time with a group of executives at Sony Japan. I met
Oh,
this guy who
wow.
was the stiffest human being I've ever met. Dark suit, white shirt, his tie strangling him. I got him role storming as Yoda. And
Oh,
I've never seen personal
fantastic.
transformation. Like
Yeah.
his jacket's off, his tie's undone, he's leaping around the room. The whiteboards are filled with ideas. The truth is, I didn't teach him to be creative. He had that inside, but there was a blocker, his role. Put him in a new role, he was liberated.
So we,
The idea police. Well, first of all, that alone, out of that bit, idea police.
yeah.
I love that. Go ahead,
I was
Ryan.
gonna say,
Sorry to
so
interrupt.
Josh, we're planning the next retreat for the company, and yeah, I can see myself
Yeah.
being you for a
Oh,
day.
oh, good luck. Uh, what's the idea? I used to say this, Joshua, when I owned an ad agency, especially to prospects and customers. I'd say, listen, you've hired us because you want us to do not just the tactical stuff, but you want us to bring you some big ideas. And big ideas, it's been my experience, terrify you at first. At first, I'm going to bring you an idea that, okay, or our team's going to bring you an idea, and at first, the hairs on the back of your neck are going to be like, that's a little, I don't know if we should go that far. And then we'll kind of walk it through, and maybe we do it, maybe we don't. So the idea there is that a big idea, a big idea should almost scare you. Do you have any, is there anything in your work or in your research that kind of can prove that, or am I just talking out of my ass? Which is fine.
Little both.
Which is
No,
fine. I'm totally comfortable talking out of my
I
ass,
think
by the
you're
way.
right because instead of trying to do incrementalism, which generally yields
Right.
mediocrity, it's like you're going way to the edge. And even if you have to tone it down a little bit, that's actually a better jump. It reminds me, there's a very famous quote which I keep handy by a guy named Arthur Schopenhauer. And here's what the quote is: All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently
I've
opposed.
heard
And
this.
third, it is accepted as self-evident.
Right.
And so if someone came to you in like, the year 1996 and said, "Hey man, I got this idea for like AI and social media and a phone where you can do video conferencing," and like, you laugh at
Ridiculed.
them. Right, ridiculed. And eventually then people are like, no, I can't do the cell phone because I make corded phones, and that'd be terrible. And so, violently opposed. But eventually, that truth becomes self-evident. And so, you going in with big ideas is exactly the right way to bust through the mess and ultimately get to a good answer.
Love that. Okay, Ryan, you got
No,
something
go
else?
ahead. Go ahead.
So the advice that you'd give people, I have this Billy Bean quote that I'll throw on folks every once in a while about innovation because I want to get back to what you do with creativity and innovation. Billy Bean's famous for saying,
Mm.
if we weren't already doing it this way, how would we do it? Which allows a lot of people in the room to not think about all the historical stuff that, oh, that's a beautiful watch. All the historical stuff that they've done, right? Like I've done it this way for 20 years on Sally, Jimmy, all that stuff. And it allows them this free space to just go, hey, like throw all that away. We're setting up, I used to do this bit with clients too. We're setting up a shop on Mars and we're bringing 3 people with us. Okay. We don't have any of the stuff that we have back here. How are we going to do it? And do you have any, first of all, do you have similar things like that that you use to kind of get people out of that mental, box that they're in?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great approach. Absolutely love that. One thing I like doing is called future casting, where it's basically like here's an example. Hey, our company was just featured on Time Magazine as the most innovative company on the planet, and the whole company, the whole article was based on our culture. How do we get our culture to be so innovative? Imagine that you're reading the article, and the person, the researcher, went and asked for a quote from a customer, a team member, and a supplier. What do you think those quotes might have been that said how we became so innovative? Or maybe you say like what changes from that time to this time did the writer feature that were the root to our success? So future casting basically means you pick a point in time in the future, 2 years from now, 3 years, and you're saying, okay, something cool, it already happened. If it already happened in your mind, you're not worried about executional challenges or risk,
Right.
whatever already happened. How do you think it might have happened? And so you're starting at the end and working backwards.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. All right, I got another one I want to throw past you and destroy it as you please. So, diversity of thought, diversity of however you want to slice diversity, it really doesn't matter. Diversity creates conflict. Conflict creates innovation. Can you,
Um,
can you, first of all, destroy it? I'm totally comfortable with that, by the way. These are just ideas.
Yeah,
So,
my only one I would question, so diversity, heck yeah, and the only one I question
no,
is
no,
conflict
leading,
because
leading to the conflict, because if we come from different positions, we don't see the world the same way. We're going to have a conflict. It could be, it could be, I just see the world differently. Whatever that conflict is, it could be minor. Like the way I got to this is at one point I was looking at a Silicon Valley VC firm, and it was all white guys in North Face jackets, right? And so you know the bit, right? So I'm thinking to myself, that's got to be a very easy office to work at because they all went to the same business schools, they all have the same country club experiences, they all have probably the same wives, etc. Like that's just easy. We get in a room, there's no conflict. We all see the world the same way. So how do you get to innovation if you don't have conflict? And again, destroy it. It's just a thought. I don't,
I
I'm not
generally agree
not
with that.
attached to it.
The thing, I'm stuck a little bit on the word conflict because you're right. In many cases, it does create conflict, which in turn opens new. Yes, yes, yes. And let's say I'm playing jazz in an improvisational setting with people that are wildly diverse musically, instruments, social, race, age, all that stuff, and we can co-create without conflict. So like I may come up with an idea, and it's a bad idea, but it's a new idea, and then the bass player hears it and picks it up and plays with it, and then the drummer grabs that rhythm and plays with it, and then the sax player hearing this whole thing unfold rips a killer solo to the delight of the audience. So like whose idea was it? Well, it was diversity that drew the idea, but it wasn't necessarily conflict. It was is maybe the middle word is collaboration. I don't know, but I will say this because I totally agree with the core point you have. Totally agree with it. Homogeneity sucks the wind out of creativity.
Hmm.
It's a killer.
We
The
we just got to the same place. I love it.
Yes,
That's exactly what the point was. Is like
yeah, the VCs
homogeneous culture, however you define that. It's just like there's no way you get to innovation from there. I don't, or at least
100%
say no
agree.
way. It's harder to get there. I'm sure you do. Some people do, but it just seems harder to get there.
So
So
homogeneity does that. Also, hierarchy does that because the boss is always right type of thing. Here's another cool one, just because we were talking techniques, and I just love this. So in tribal region in Africa, they created something called an Imbizo group, IMBIZO, Imbizo group. Maybe IMBIZIO, Imbizo group. Anyway, an Imbizo group. It's basically you create a team radically diverse to solve a problem. So historically, it was like the chief solved all the problems. And Mbizo group was like, hey, we got this problem. Let's invite an enemy from a neighboring village to help us solve it. Let's invite a 2-year-old child to solve it. Let's invite, and so the more diversity, the better. And so I actually do this for companies all the time. So what I'll do, I'll create an Mbizo group. So let's say it's a consumer packaged good product company trying to solve a problem. I'll bring in a poet, an industrial designer. I'll bring in an engineer. I'll bring in, a 5-year-old. And so like you bring in these weird, and it's not that any one person has the idea. It's that put diverse ideas in a cauldron, shake that up like a martini shaker, and all of a sudden out comes beauty. And so it's William, exactly to your point. The more diversity, the better. I don't know if it's conflict in that martini shaker or what, but out comes beauty.
I love it.
Love that process.
Drops mic, walks off stage. Idea police. That might be the title. Josh, thank you most. I know you're crazy busy and flying all over the world, but thank you for carving out some time for us in the show.
Well, thank you. I mean, what a beautiful conversation. I wish we could keep hanging out for like 5 hours on this.
No worries.
I love your passion and I love the energy.
We'll have you back.
Absolutely. Thank you, and thanks to the audience. Until next time.